Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. So we've all been playing Genshin Impact for quite some time now, and we have been doing Abyss 12s for a very long time. This means that we actually do have a lot of data available to us floating around the internet. However, I decided to take the time to actually compile it all to see if we can learn anything from it. Now you guys have probably seen these Reddit threads floating around where people will post the usage statistics for each phase of the Spiral Abyss. And we can see here, for example, that this is powered by the yshelper, which is the name of the mobile app version on the EN side that people use to look at some of this data. And this, of course, shows us each character's usage rates in terms of, like, I believe how many, what percentage of people that own this character end up using this character for the respective Abyss 12 runs and clears. Now, the issue with this, though, is that it's not compiled for us in terms of an aggregate of all the data for us to easily kind of navigate and to figure things out. So I took it upon myself to, well, go through and actually copy their data and punch it all into a chart for us to also have access to. And you all know me, I love my cats, but not in the way that some people might love the cats in today's sponsor, Cat Fantasy. Cat Fantasy is an upcoming waifu collector free-to-play gacha game crammed full of cats that would make even your crazy cat lady neighbor green with envy. These cat waifus are based on over 30 breeds of IRL cats, with over 100 plus cat girls already in the game. Each cat girl has their own high quality 2D art, and oftentimes with mobile games the 3D versions don't look so hot, but Cat Fantasy does a great job with their 3D models. Every Neko Musume has an epic ultimate animation in combat, ranging from giant laser hammers to swimsuit cat girls with water guns. As we can see, the cast is diverse and there's a ton of personality. You can bond with your pet cat girls by petting them, admiring them, even playing with them. Every cat girl has a paw-full amount of detail put into them and their interactions. Cat Fantasy's combat is easy to pick up and fun to master as you combine your cat cards to inflict maximum cuteness damage to your enemies. New players can claim up to 1,000 free pulls in the first 2 weeks, and a free SSR character Anja Noreen by simply logging in for a couple of days. There's also tons of gift codes like these ones on the screen. So what are you waiting for? Smash that link down below to pre-register today. Huge thanks to Cat Fantasy for sponsoring today's video. So that way we can also play with the data and, you know, figure out some takeaways and things like that. So of course, a link to this will be down in the comments below and the description, of course. And you guys can, of course, just file, make a copy and do whatever you want with this data. Me personally, I'm not the best at manipulating data, so I'm really curious to see what takeaways and what patterns and findings you guys find. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to show you guys how to use this sheet, as well as, you know, just a few of the takeaways and things that I noticed that I found a bit interesting. Now, we have this data sorted tab. This one is an optional tab that I created just so you guys can kind of sort through the data a little bit more easily. And what this is you can select a version, and this will take the average of the character's usage rates from this version on, which is 3.0.1, all the way until the current version of, you know, the game / Abyss 12. And we can see in an aggregate sense, Furina was used 84.55%. She was the most used character between this time range. And of course, you know, the meta is a bit outdated from 3.0.1. So if you just want to narrow it down to Fontaine's meta, you can select from here and it will take the average of everything from 4.0.1 and beyond. And yes, this is a bit hacky. In case you're curious how I did this, well, I've just kind of hid a copy of this original chart down here, which it just grabs that data from and then, you know, sorts it, blah, blah, blah. You know, just some Excel shenanigans going on here, which, by the way, the data is from NGA. And also, really quick before we start diving into the charts, which I find really interesting, big thanks to DHCWSP. Now, if you don't know who DHCWSP is, he is an incredible speedrunner on mobile that has been setting many records across the board for speedrunning in Genshin Impact. Okay, so let's take a look at what we can learn from this. And I find this really interesting, and one of the bigger shakeups to the meta was Furina's release. So what we can do here in this chart that I've pre-set up for you guys, of course you guys can make your own charts, but I'm just going to show you guys, quick way to use it. And you can just click on this add series and we can add a character like Baizu. Yes, a new Valletta is missing from this chart. All right, so I figured out what was wrong with it. It is because I had a typo with new Valletta, but that is now fixed. By the time you see this video, that should be addressed. So we can see here though a strong correlation between Baizu's usage as well as new Valletta's usage. Although a bit, yeah, we can see that whenever new Valletta dips down, Baizu also dips down. The two of them are definitely paired together and go hand in hand. Now, another interesting character to look at with the release of Furina is Jean. So we can see here that Jean was, just at a very tragic, whatever percent here. It's not showing up when we click on it, but you know what? It just goes up by a lot. Sometimes when you hover over it, it actually shows you the percent, but sometimes it doesn't. Not really sure why, but hey, it is what it is. Not the biggest deal. We can just add characters here to see like who else benefited from it. For example, we can see Bennett doesn't really seem to have much of a... Actually, we have Bennett having an inverse correlation here, but then quickly rising up again after people realize, well, hey, we can always use Bennett without Furina, or, even with Furina at certain times. So there's just a lot of really interesting correlations that you guys can draw and to see if you can figure out, hey, did this character have some impact or not? But always remember, correlation does not mean causation. Now, me personally, I am also curious to see if Kokomi improved at all with Furina, and actually, absolutely not. In fact, since Furina's release, Kokomi looks to have taken a massive plunge. It definitely looks like that Furina's release probably had a negative impact on Kokomi, because of course now we have another Hydro applicator, and that was one of the biggest assets that Kokomi brought. But of course, I am just purely speculating right now, and we can see that we can draw a lot of interesting conjectures, at least not conclusions, but conjectures just from looking at this data and comparing some of these line graphs. Let's move on to the next one, which consists of Xiao. So I find Xiao really interesting because we can see if there's a correlation between his usage as well as Xianyun's release. Now I'm going to remove some of these because I am colorblind, so it's hard for me to see. But we can see a massive spike in Xiao's usage rates, like 4%, 3%, all the way up to whatever this is. So let's add Xianyun, which, of course we can expect her to have a massive... look at this. Look at this chart. This is like so perfectly correlated that it's not even funny. And as people start to use Xianyun less, people are using Xiao less as well. This is such a strong correlation. Like, I'm not even sure we can find one stronger than that, to be completely honest. Now, I'm also curious to see how Wanderer might have had an effect on Xiao. It does look like that for a period, Wanderer was used significantly more than Xiao, and then after Xianyun's release, it does look like Wanderer has not quite recovered, while Xiao has actually been more preferred as the main Anemo DPS, at least, based on this chart. And unfortunately going down, now both of them are kind of in the same spot with each other. Who else does Xianyun potentially have a big impact on? Well, we have Diluc, and unfortunately Diluc's graph does not look like it improved much with Xianyun's release. We can even take a look at a 4-star DPS character that was released. We have Gaming, who is fun, I guess, for literally just the patch that he was released. And since then, he has plummeted and nobody is using him. Now, of course, from version 3.0 and onward, this is, of course, just Dendro. This is all the data we have from the NGA group. There was some earlier data from other groups that unfortunately I did not have time or don't really know where to get. So we are here with this data instead. So we have Nahida. Now, Nahida certainly had a profound impact on a lot of characters. Like, let's take a look at Keqing first. So we can see Keqing definitely had a small spike in usage right here. And, Keqing is a standard banner character, so of course her usage rates are just going to be lower in comparison to, feature characters like Nahida. Let's take a look. Let's see if we can figure out anything about Keqing right here. So we have Keqing, yeah, she's kind of just like a 5.3% jobber after Nahida's release, which is, I believe, somewhere around here or something. Next character, let's take a look at one of my personal favorite characters and her rise to fame, Kuki Shinobu. Look at this massive increase, and considering she is a 4-star character, this is incredible usage rates for her. And we can even add, for example, no, not Chiori. let's add the Raiden Shogun, and we can see Raiden's usage has been going down steadily, while Kuki's has been, went up colossally during this period. Dendro, of course, not really strongly favoring Raiden, and Kuki, of course, having multiple roles. And now we can see that the two of them are basically neck to neck as people choose between who to use between Kuki and Raiden. This is the impact of the Dendro impact meta that has still been holding strong, all things considered, going into Fontaine and up through version 4.7. So this next chart I wanted to kind of highlight is what ends up happening to main DPS characters. And we're going to start with Linny. We can see that he had a very strong showing at around 50% usage rate when he was released. And bam, he just tanked. He just completely tanked. This is interesting because some DPS characters have kind of maintained a bit better relevance. Like, for example, Alhaitham has maintained pretty strong and steady. And for example, a main DPS character like Neuvillette, in fact, is just rising, but we are seeing more hydro-favored Abyss 12s, so it's not too surprising to see the Dragon Daddy do so well. Now let's take a look at some more DPS characters. We can see Wriothesley. Wriothesley right here never really had a super high usage rate and just kind of maintained pretty steady. And what's funny about Wriothesley teams is that they're often just Wriothesley solo runs, which I find really funny. So we can see also Arlecchino. Of course, we only have 2 data points for her, so it's pretty meaningless, but she started off fairly strong at around 70-ish%, and we can see it just though going down significantly. I'm assuming the lack of pyro favored stuff is definitely going to hurt her. So yeah, what other DPS characters? Let's take a look at Cyno, who was released during this period, and it has just been all bad news for Cyno. But hey, him and Linny I guess are basically being used at about the same rates now, so that's mildly interesting. And this is kind of like the lesson about main DPS characters. They tend to go down on average, I would say. Like if we look at just another one, like for example, Yoimiya, you can see Yoimiya had a bit of a strong showing, and she's now down in the pits as well. Now I'm going to make another chart because now that I've been talking about main DPS characters, let's see how supports end up holding out. Well, Kazuha has of course maintained such a ridiculous showing and usage rate. It is just comical of a character. Now me personally, I'm kind of like, as much as I like Kazuha, I'm kind of bored of him. I really want to see a new support character kind of take the reins and be a bit of a Kazuha replacement or alternative. So anyway, we can see Zhongli as well. These support characters have just been, oh my god, they've just been so good. Now we have Venti, who is, oh my goodness, the Animo Archon has fallen so far down. And we even have some, of course, 4-star supports like Bennett, who, okay, it's getting a little hard to see here, so we're going to get rid of Kazuha. We already know Kazuha dominates the entire game. But we can see Bennett have actually a major fall here. I'm not sure what happened in that patch, but it must not have been favorable for our Benny boy here. Let me know if you guys learned anything from this data. Please go grab this, make a copy of it for yourself. And if you guys make some cool things, share it with us down in the comments below. I would absolutely love to see it. And if you found this video interesting, let me know. I figured I would throw this out there, see what we can learn from all this data, and see if there's anything interesting about it. Now, one thing is, I did not double check the data here. I'm sure there are some data entry errors here and there, so if you do spot them, let me know, or just, correct it in your sheet, and I don't know, like, just publish it. Because again, I don't personally plan to maintain it, but hey, you never know. We'll see if I maintain it in the future. And don't forget to check out Cat Fantasy down in the comments below for sponsoring today's video. Really appreciate them. They make these types of videos possible. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.